Episode 11 of Chicago Med Season 11 might have been a memorable episode. Rather, it seemed to be more of the same stories that we had often read. Even worse, Ripley's reunion with Lynn took up a third of the episode, the most dull personal plot of the entire season. In Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11, Dr. Charles gives a dying woman advice. The plot of Dr. Charles should have been even more devastating than it was. Dr. Charles made a big comeback in Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11, but it seemed like a repeat. Charles's relationship with the patient was intriguing, and it was evident that he and her spouse were the patient's true loves. I liked learning more about Charles's background. However, I could see where this was headed as soon as Susie told me that she had a brain disorder that needed her to decide between losing all of her cognitive abilities and undergoing a very dangerous surgery. Since every tragedy is unique, this one might have been dramatic even if the conclusion was so clear, yet it was difficult to feel anything because Chicago Med has experienced this same tale countless times. That doesn't mean there were no powerful moments. There was no denying the chemistry between Charles and his pals, and I appreciated that he both agreed with Susie's choice and recognized Howie's hesitation. Furthermore, Mark Linn-Baker was unquestionably a formidable force during the entire hour. We have strong feelings about every facet of television and aren't afraid to voice our thoughts. You'll enjoy our newsletter if that's what drew you to us. To subscribe, click the button in the upper right corner. Howie's rage at Susie for wanting the operation and at himself for not wanting to retire before she became ill was ideal, and his response to hearing of her passing was one of the episode's most dramatic yet subtle moments. I would have shed tears if this narrative point hadn't been so obvious. Perhaps it's me. I've watched all 11 seasons of Chicago Med, so not much shocks me anymore. However, if I ignore the predictability, this was a strong plot that ought to have been heartbreaking. Still, it felt hollow because of how many times Chicago Med uses difficult decisions as shorthand for, this character is about to die. He was this prototypical haughty head of neurosurgery who was more entertaining than bothersome due to his well-crafted caustic remarks. What happened to that guy? Do you favor the more compassionate version of Abrams or the arrogant one? Let us know in the comments. Feel free to share this post so others can participate in too. Abrams' soft-spoken and sympathetic demeanor surprised me, even though it has been the pattern of his recent appearances. Archer works on a cowboy who fell off a bull in Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11. Steven Weber is fantastic, but I wanted Archer gone ASAP since he was not just unpleasant and arrogant but also prepared to play games to get over consent difficulties. In Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11, he was annoying once again, and there didn't seem to be anything wrong with it. Over the years he has softened somewhat and is now generally pleasant, especially when he's with Hannah. To be a major cause of it. The fact that his patient refused to listen to him infuriated Archer. I understand that. On Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11, Lennox appears irate. But berating the patient incessantly for his choice and going as far as calling him selfish was beyond the pale, and it felt like this was about more than simply irritation with a difficult patient. Because Hannah isn't acting on his clear wish to be more than just friends and co-parents, are we to believe that Archer is angry with the world? It's particularly upsetting that those emotions were overlooked in one scene toward the end because the thought of a rodeo guy who felt like he couldn't do anything else in life was more intriguing than this squabbling. Unlike Archer's care of this patient, Hannah's antagonism with Dr. Kingston was at least concealed due to professional differences. And who thought Ripley and Lynn's misadventure was a great idea? Lennox and Ripley. Lynn and Ripley. Whichever one he chooses, I don't care. Please take these relationships off screen. I swear, there are moments when it seems like the authors are punishing the viewers for not being fans of Ripley and Hannah by placing Ripley in even more dull and awful love scenarios. Ripley and Lynn sneaking about to try to sprinkle Sully's ashes took up a third of an episode, which was entirely too much screen time. In Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11, Ripley and Lynn get back in touch. This plot seemed to have no purpose. Let's at least give Ripley a medical narrative if we must have him. Chicago Med enthusiasts, what are your thoughts? Perhaps some of you thought Archer was completely justified, perhaps you liked Ripley and Lynn. That's awesome, I'd love to know what you think. Share your thoughts about Chicago Med Season 11 Episode 11 in the comments section. And don't forget to forward this post to your friends so they can participate in the discussion.